Since the beginning of this universe, you know the world is fading. There's a secret power hidden in your soul. Don't be afraid to use it. There are voices in your head saying that you're a failure. You're not good enough, but you know that's not true. There is a secret power hidden in your soul. Don't be afraid to use it, 'cause you're the one. 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 'Cause you're the one. You're the one. You're the one. You're the chosen one. You're the one. You're the one. You're the one. You're the chosen one.
Oh, okay, man, that song just never ends. Greetings, twits. Welcome back to Disenthrall. I will be Patrick Smith. We have a cool chat for you today. It's been a little bit since we've had a cool chat, but today, with me on the show, we have the Christian, formerly of Liberty After Dark. How are you doing, Christian?
I am doing fantastic.
Can I say formerly?
Yeah, that's fine.
Awesome. All right, cool. So, couple announcements for everybody. Both of them are kind of big, I think. The big announcement, number one, is the details on Feed the Need for this year here in Dallas. It is going to happen on December 10th. We will be setting up, and we'll publish this information as well, hopefully on the Voluntary Virtue website, as well as accept donations for anybody wanting to donate in a way that's tax exempt. We'll have that option for you. We're going to be setting up on the corner of Jeffries and Ash Street this year on December 10th, beginning at 10 a.m., running till 4 p.m. And then, potentially as we have done every year so far, probably going back out in the evening to help with people sleeping on the concrete. So those are the details. My headset wire is getting caught on things. Those are the details for Feed the Need this year. December 10th, Jeffries and Ash, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., and then back out again in the evening. So if you guys want to join us for that, that's really the preference. We would love to have you guys come out and help. If you cannot make it to Dallas on December 10th, would absolutely love to take your donations as well. We'll definitely spend it on all the good stuff, food, clothing, tents, sleeping bags, warm stuff like that, toiletries, things like that to help people near Christmas time that are in a bad way. So that is Feed the Need. Awesome. I'm excited to announce that. The second thing I wanted to announce is little history for people that aren't aware. Back, I don't know, several years ago now, maybe 4 years ago, I had a conception to sort of convert Disenthrall into more of a network platform of content creators. And we brought in a couple creators. And if you remember, Victor Pross was one of them. And that whole era just kind of ended in a debacle. And it was just not a good idea. It didn't work. We ended up having some pretty bad takes put out on the platform. And so I just kind of shut it down. And basically the only human alive aside from myself that had the keys to the channel to publish content for you guys was Kaysen. Because I just will not put out bad content or content with bad philosophy to you guys. I respect the benefit of your eyeballs way too much for that. But recently I made the offer to Christian to see if he would like to join and be a publisher, a content producer here on the Disenthrall platform. As some of you know, he's had his own channel, Liberty After Dark, for quite some time. He puts out some delightfully nerdy philosophy content that I just love to ingest. He has, I don't think I've ever heard him have a bad take philosophically yet. And so I've extended sort of my trust to the platform, to Christian, and welcome, Christian. It's going to be cool to see your content here.
Yeah, you have to go back a bit into the logs to find all my bad takes, but they're in there, I promise. Just hopefully, not any of my recent takes have been bad,
Yeah. Well, me too. Like if you go back, I actually am a little afraid to go back to the beginning of this channel and find some of my takes. There's definitely some bad ones in there, which might be worth a video on its own at some point. Just like doing. I
was going to say. That could be like a fun video. Like we each pick like some of our content that we did and just find like our most horrible takes and then talk about why they're wrong.
I can already I can tell you like right now my number one will be a full-throated defense of universally preferable behavior. I didn't early on. I did not see the unsubstantiated premise that attempted to sidestep the guillotine. So that's mine. That's back there. If you go back and look at the history of the channel, there was a lot of UPB defense. But yeah, we're human. We learn. And look, we have these conversations all the time for the purposes of learning that we're wrong and changing our position. So I would probably be doing something wrong if I didn't change an opinion on something in 10 years. So yeah. All right. What's up?
If the takes were the same from beginning to end, that would be an issue, I think, more than anything.
Yeah, awesome. So, hey, Trenton, good to see you over in Odysee. Odysee stream was struggling earlier, so I'm glad to see that it's working. So you guys are probably going to start to see some content. We probably won't upload like all of his Liberty After Dark content at once because that would just spam everybody. But we'll start to drip out some of the content and republish it from the Liberty After Dark channel to get it over here. Because he's got some really good stuff, so I'm excited. Now there are 3 people that have the keys to publish things to Disenthrall, and I'm looking forward to where we go from here. Okay, well that concludes my busy work. This was your idea to actually talk about this, and I like it. I'm looking forward to it. So why don't you kick it off? Why don't you tell us what we're doing here?
Yeah, so if you guys don't remember, for some reason, social media has been quite a topic in libertarian spaces for, I'd say a little over, really since the whole COOF thing started. That was what really got the conversation rolling about social media. But it's been rumbling and brewing pretty good ever since then. And there are some takes out there, all sorts of takes of all different shapes and sizes that have to do mostly around whether or not Twitter as a company, as holders of property and their property ought to be respected. Like, should we respect their rights is the question that's been asked a lot. And now, as I'm sure everyone here is aware of, there's been a new development where Mr. Elon Musk, Daddy Cybertruck, Marsman himself, has acquired solely, is a sole proprietor of Twitter, which is huge. It's a big development. So I said, hey, what would be really interesting is if we move this conversation a step forward, and now we can start talking about all sorts of ideas that have to go around. Okay, what happens when somebody buys a company, et cetera, yada yada. No, we'll get into all that.
Yeah. So let's talk about how it used to be, and then we can talk about how it changed, right? So like. I think there's a pretty easy case to be made for Facebook colluding with government in a material way, such that I don't really care to respect their property rights. Let's put it that way. They do things like they have an office, a section of their office where they allow the federal government to come in and have direct access to their back-end network to do things like spying on people, and that's a level of direct collusion that is far above most of the flimsy. I talked about this in the Crowder video recently, where Crowder was like making some really just weak ass arguments for how Facebook was colluding with the government. In fact, just merely echoing an opinion held by some of the people in government was enough for a lot of people to say, oh, Facebook is colluding with the government, therefore it's not private property anymore. Those are a lot of terrible arguments, but I think a really strong one is they literally invite the government in and they give them a seat on their back-end private network to spy on people. That tears it for me. I don't give a shit about Facebook's property when they're going to do that. When they're going to aid the largest threat to my cybersecurity and privacy in the world, when they're going to link arms and help them out, sorry, I can no longer reciprocate rights with you with all that may entail. Well, who else do we have? We have, we got Twitter, Instagram is Facebook too. TikTok is an almost not wholly owned subsidiary of the Chinese Communist government, but their government has a lot of guns pointed at them to have control and spying into that. So I think it's a pretty easy case to make that something like TikTok is not an entity deserving of property rights respect. Twitter, I'm not sure previously what like if they had done the same kind of collusion that Facebook had, where they gave the government a backdoor into their back-end network, though I very much suspect that they had. But it's important to like make these cases. And the distinction that you guys are probably tired of hearing me say it at this point. Like, you can't just say blanket statement, all large corporations are basically government entities and we can just disregard their property rights. Like, you're just bringing us back down to like war against all at that point. Like, you actually, like, ethics function at the individual level. And so you have to actually make the case on an individual basis. You can't collectivize all the companies and declare them all null and void and government entities. So I would like us to start there with Twitter and then try and make the case for what their current status is, right? What are your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think really the big thing that most people start on is the money, right? Like, all of these big corporations in some way, shape, or other do contracts, or they receive some kind of subsidy, etc., or they directly employ or have in their offices government agents. I know a lot of I don't want to misspeak. I think it's Facebook has people from like the FTC, like a dedicated room for them in order for them to like make sure everything is going well and stuff like that, which is crazy to think about when you're a company that big, that they have a government employee in their offices at all times, basically. And these factors do, I think, add up to a totality of involvement with government that needs to be considered for sure. Because there's like a what is it, 3 degrees of Kevin Bacon or something, like 7 degrees, whatever it is. You can kind of do that with the government. It's like, okay, how many degrees of separation are we from the government? Does it need to be 3? Is 2 okay? What about 1 degree? And we can play this game until the cows come home. But at some point, we have to draw the line. And I think, if you see a company that takes like a subsidy or something like that, you probably should be a little more lenient on them than, say, someone like Facebook, who's doing literally all the above in a given category. But this comes down to the conversation of gas stations, right? Do gas station owners, as members holding on to a franchise that is directly 100%, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, being aided along by the government, are they due to have their property rights violated? And I don't see very many people. There are some who would advocate it, who are libertarians, who would think it would be okay to go into your local gas station and just take shit off the shelf. There seems to be a kind of line there that people are willing to recognize, even if just in the abstract. So.
A lot of good comments from a couple people that are hitting on some of the exact things I had in my notes to hit about. So good on you guys. You guys are on top of it. But before I read them, I want to point out like the strongest case for what an actual collusion or co-conspiratorship with the government would be. Perfect examples would be Amazon's cloud. So AWS, Amazon Web Services, largest cloud provider in the world, has millions and millions of dollars of government contracts. A lot of government infrastructure is hosted in, and not just Amazon. Microsoft Azure is their cloud platform. Google has their cloud platform. And all of these hosting companies accept millions of dollars in infrastructure payments for the government. So they are actively sort of providing services to the government. For me, that is way above and beyond any threshold that I would need to disregard any rights of theirs. Like, I just don't care anymore. If they're gonna collude with the government, enter into a business relationship with the mafia to provide services that the mafia is going to use to spy on and control me and run their operations, I don't give a damn about them. And so I wanted to set that up as like the actual, maybe best case, best standard, and then maybe we can back down from there as we go. So
yeah, there's no scenario where the AWS situation isn't like horribly colluding. Like there's so much wrong with that scenario. They gain so much from it as well, which I think is a factor to be added onto here. It's I think you're right that it is like the quintessential place to start from.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to get to some. Instead of reading my notes, I'm going to read the comments that say the same thing. So great job, guys. Casimir Freeman says he's not a sole proprietor, but he has the overwhelming controlling share. Valid point. I'm not sure there. I'm not sure it modifies the ethics of it, since he has the controlling share and makes the final decision, but it's good to know. Casimir also says that the Twitter was also mostly previously owned by government in terms of finances. Now, obviously, it's different. He also says the case against Elon Musk will have to rely on two factors, and this is where I said it was right out of my notes. Because the point behind his point is that we're not talking about Twitter's rights. Twitter doesn't exist. We're talking about the owner of this concept, of this association, of this group entity called Twitter. We're talking about their rights, the owner's rights. So we're talking about a list of people who have an ownership share. And in the case of Elon, he's got the controlling share. So he's the final say on everything. We're talking about Elon Musk's rights specifically. And when evaluating whether or not and another thing that bears mentioning is that, look, I'm going to talk about my standards for who I associate with and who I reciprocate rights with. That's my standards. Your standards might be different. My standards are typically going to be, if you aggress against me or other people, that's the line for me. And this goes to anti-subjectivism, which is a longer discussion. If you want to check out that philosophical manifesto, check out antisubjectivism.com for that. So yeah, we're talking about Elon Musk's rights. And so when Casimir says the case against Elon Musk, he nails an important point. We're not talking about Twitter's rights. We're talking about Musk's rights. He's just going to rely on two factors. And he lists subsidies for Tesla, government contracts for SpaceX. Exactly. What are the other things that Musk has done? Is Musk colluding with government in other areas in other ways besides Twitter? Because I think at this point, we don't have any data to make a judgment on what he's doing in terms of Twitter's property and colluding with government, which I think is the next step in this discussion that we should have is like, okay, so now here we are. Twitter's changed hands. If you got banned today, Christian, let's say, would you be right or wrong to sort of force yourself back onto his servers by creating a sock account? What are your thoughts?
I would say that you would be violating Elon's property rights if you were to subvert the TOS and create a sock account to get back after being banned. And I'm sure a lot of people will probably have a kind of adverse reaction to that. But an important point of clarification. There's a discussion to be had about old Twitter. Old Twitter's gone. Okay, this is a new slate, we're starting fresh essentially from this conversation. But in this new Twitter, if you have an existing account or whatever that was a sock account at one point that got banned for whatever reasons, cool, we'll call that a wash. You can still use that sock account. I'll say that's perfectly ethical in this scenario. Elon purchased it with full knowledge that or in the databases, you were a sock account already there, and he was okay with that. So but now if you were to be banned post that point, it's going to be my take that you would be in violation of the TOS and as such of Elon's property rights to create a new account on Twitter. This might be a really short show. The people in the comments are on point, I'm telling you.
Let's see. Patrick says he's literally listing government satellites that SpaceX has launched into orbit, which again is an Elon linked action, right? So if he's helping the government launch fucking spy infrastructure satellites into space, then like I guess screw his rights. Like I think that might be the end of the entire discussion. Actually, he says. Patrick says, of the two main satellites that were lifted into high Earth orbit, only one has been identified, Tetra 1, built by Millennium Space Systems, a Boeing subsidiary. And he goes on to list some other things. So, are we done? Are we done here? Should we end the stream?
Yeah, okay. Okay, hold on, though. So, like, again, we're talking about levels of collusion here, right? So, if you are a gas station and you sell gas to police, are you colluding with the government?
Yeah, if I had a gas station, I wouldn't sell gas to police.
You wouldn't, under any circumstances?
No.
Like ethically, you think you wouldn't be able to sell gas to the police?
If I knew they were the police, why would I sell gas to them? I don't look. I go out of my way to a significant degree. I would be significantly more wealthy than I am today had I not taken a hardline stance against association with the government, especially in any direct way. And I think that's what you're kind of getting to is like I don't care who you are, every single one of you watching this stream right now, we could draw a 7 degrees of separation to link you to colluding with the government. Because the government is so pervasive, it's so ubiquitous now. Like the government regulates, touches, controls, affects, manipulates, biases literally every facet of your life at this point in time. And so it's really easy to fall into this thing where you just consider everybody your enemy. And I think that's a mistake because it drags us back down into just a constant state of nature. For me, I'm really looking for the first link in the chain. I'm looking for the primary direct connection, the line that I can draw between you and a coercive force. And so for me, I have turned down 7 figures of income, and I'm not exaggerating, because I will not be associated with the government. So yeah, if I had a gas station, there'd be a big, no government employees, no government agency sign on it. Now, if they, and if they snuck on and bought some of my gas without telling me they were a government agency, I wouldn't say that I'm colluding because they're violating my rights by, violating my consent and buying gas from me in that way. I wish more people would take a stance, at least the first degree. I don't think the first degree of association is too much to ask of people. Don't help the government. Ladies and gentlemen, don't do that. Like, I don't think that's too much to ask. Now, if you have a garage sale and you sell to the son of a cop, and the son then turns around and sells it to his dad, the actual police officer, that then uses it to commit, police crime. Am I going to now say, now that you're 3 degrees removed, now are you still colluding? No, I think that now we're getting into absurd territory really quick. But I think, going back to the steel man, if you can start with the 2 individuals involved and you can draw a direct line between coercion and the person providing assistance, voluntary assistance, that's another important part of it. If there's guns pointed at you, I think that also changes the situation. But I think that's a fair standard for people to have. Don't help the government. Don't work with them. Don't associate with them. What do you think?
Yeah, I certainly think it would be ideal. I can't help but wonder. Let's play the game just for the fun of it. I understand that we could look at this in 3 degrees of separation, but let's not do that. Let's say someone, I own a gas station. I'll make this about me. I own a gas station, and I don't really care who buys gas from me. They want gas, I sell them gas, right? It's completely consensual interaction between the two of us. If a cop comes up and wants gas, I sell them gas. Now, if that cop drives off somewhere, and then shoots someone's puppy, am I partially responsible for that occurring, or was it a completely separate business transaction that then I'm being lumped in with because they went off and did their own thing? And I'm going to try to draw this back to space satellites, if you couldn't tell. So
I think you can make it even a more clear case. Like selling gas to fill a cop car would be a stronger, more visceral analogy. Would be selling bullets to a cop. Like,
yeah, perfect.
I would never ever do that. In fact, I can't say too much along these lines. But I had an opportunity very recently where somebody wanted me to help develop a weapons technology to be used by law enforcement. And I was, well, first of all, astonished. I was like, do you know who I am? Do you know me? Asking me that kind of question. But no, absolutely not. Even though I would stand to gain significantly, personally, financially. Never. I would never do that. Casimir asked a good question. He says, would you take money offered by the state until you offset your total taxes paid? Yes. That's just seeking restitution. As long as that balance doesn't flip and you start taking other people's stolen money, I don't see an issue with that. And in my personal life, I have been taxed greatly, greatly. And when my daughter fell ill, she's had a multi-million-dollar now cancer treatment that she went through. And I was careful to take an account of how much I have had stolen from me in taxes and how much accrued, how much, let's say, government assistance I was able to take as restitution to help cover some of those costs. So yeah, I think you can make that case. If Facebook, so Kojul says, and I'll give this to you, Christian, what if Facebook is being coerced into allowing the government access to their servers to spy on people?
I think they are. I think they probably are. Okay, so in the example of Facebook, like, again, there's like a certain amount of degrees of coercion here, I think. With the example of Facebook, they were notable because they weren't. Like coercion was at best implied in that scenario. It was kind of like hey, we would really appreciate it if you opened up all of your stuff to us. It would make our jobs a lot easier. And then in the back rooms, it was kind of like, if you don't do it, you can totally choose not to do that, but we may just have to like develop some law or something that forces you to do that.
That actually happens.
And yeah. So it's like, you can just comply, or you can, throw open the gates and, or we will force the gates open, rather, is what the government was saying. Mm-hmm. So they are still responsible to the extent by which they chose to engage with the government, in my opinion. There is a certain degree of like personal responsibility that you like undertake when you do these kinds of things, that there's ways that you can try to disengage from the problem. Now, one of those ways could have been, let's say Zuckerberg was incredibly based and he said, I'm not going to do that. And they said, okay, well, if you don't, then we're going to like force laws or whatever. You can just shut Facebook down. Like, there are other ways to get around doing something like that. Obviously, that's extreme. I'm using it as like one hyperbolic example for how Zuckerberg could have approached this problem. But there are libertarians who would probably do something like that if they were put into the position where government was either going to force them to do it or they had to kill the company. They'd probably just kill the company. Especially if that's the way to get out of there with the least amount of damage done to yourself directly. Now, yeah, and it comes back to this idea of like a totality of circumstances. If the only thing that Facebook did and was involved with was this one backdoor where they were coerced, and they made a public statement that were like, we really didn't want to do this, but like they were threatening us with regulatory pressure, and they were probably going to sue us for another antitrust thing or whatever and take us to court over that. And so like we've deemed it the best interest of all the people involved to just comply with it. I still think you'd be viable in violating the Facebook property rights, but I don't think they would be evil for like doing that particular action, if that makes sense there. The entity of Facebook essentially at that point like becomes kind of like a government entity or like an extension of it, rather than the people involved being like morally evil for doing so. That's my take anyways.
USPS admits to spying on American social media posts? Interesting. I'm not surprised. All right. Well, I mean, if you guys have any other questions or comments, let us know. I think we're What else did you want to talk about, Christian? Did you have?
Yeah, I mean,
else?
I think that was basically it. Like, what changes now that Elon's? I mean, what do you think about my last comment, though? What do you think about the idea of like them not being like the people who made the decision not being evil necessarily because they were coerced to do so, but it's still justifiable for us to change how we interact with Facebook as a property.
I think I want to point out that again, this like who you choose to associate with is sort of up to you, and who I associate with is up to me. And your line might be different than my line. Like I said, my line is because of how ubiquitous government coercion is. I'm really looking for the first degree of separation actors. Does that mean I will associate with all other people that tangentially associate with the government? No, there's definitely some lines of work, like, if they take stolen money to abort babies, like, even if they don't, well, that's a bad example because aborting babies is sufficient. But I'm just saying, like, my line might be different from yours. And I think the only thing that I think you all should do is think about where your line is and then actually have the balls, fortitude, and self-respect to actually have standards for your associations, even when it might hurt your financial integrity, like your financial standing in the world. Like, that goes to my definition of virtue. I think your capacity to be virtuous in a situation is determined by how difficult it is for you to act in accordance with your principles in that moment or in that situation. So, like, if the example I always give is if you walk out into the street in the middle of the city surrounded by people and you with a loudspeaker say, "Listen up, everybody, slavery is wrong." Like, everybody's just like, okay. Like that's not brave. I don't think you have a lot of capacity to be virtuous in that situation because it's not a controversial position to hold anymore. And in fact, that's a lot of what virtue signaling is. It's just sort of saying stuff to appear virtuous to people. But I think that's not a good conception of virtuousness. Now, back when we were in the throes of COVID and everybody was freaking out about mask wearing and this happened on both sides. So this is actually a good example, but you have the left wanting to force everyone to wear masks and force everyone to get vaccinated. And we're sitting here saying that's not okay. And that was an unpopular take to hold in that moment. And on the other side, you had some, let's call them air quotes libertarians or former libertarians saying that that businesses shouldn't be allowed, or businesses that chose to require masks on their property were colluding with the government and shouldn't have their property respected. And to tell those quote unquote, let's say loosely labeled libertarians that they were wrong was also an unpopular position. So the positions that you take, the virtuousness that you have in a situation is, I think, determined by how difficult it is to take those actions or to make those decisions. And so if you are making major life decisions that negatively affect you because of principle, I think that's where virtue comes from. And virtue is a big contributor to happiness. And I don't have some kind of mathematical proof of that, but I do know that the more I act in an alignment with my principles in the face of resistance and danger and negative repercussions, there is happiness to be had there. So that's my ramble.
Slow down there, Aristotle.
I know, yeah. No, this is brand new thought. Nobody's ever said that stuff before.
I just wanted to say, just like a quick comment, is that I think a lot of people are looking for like a hard line rule, like on the island. What is like where's this ethical scale to where I can like put all of the things a company has ever done on it and know whether or not I can just like go in and steal from them or something, right? I think there's a lot of people who are looking for that kind of hard line to be drawn, but it really just isn't that simple. Like we talked about from the beginning, this whole all versus all thing, depending on where you want to set that scale, you could make, Lord, think about the stimulus checks. That's a pretty direct line to government. You could say it's not like aiding government or anything like that, but it's a pretty direct line of like, receiving aid from government and ideas like that. I've seen people make the claim that, like, hey, I don't have to respect their property rights anymore because they took money from the government, yada, yada. I would just really, like, you know, at the end of the day, like you were saying, I think it's really important that, like, we all live happy lives given the cards that we were dealt. And I don't think looking around at all of your neighbors and wondering, like, can I steal their garden gnome? Did they take a stimulus check? Let me try to find out. I don't know if that's really conducive to, like, a happy existence on this earth, you know, and a nice peaceful one where we can all get along and stuff like that. So just keep those things in mind. Just maybe a different angle of pursuing happiness when it comes to this particular question.
Your dog is going to steal the show again, by the way.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. Strategic tactics.
Oh, is he rolling around back there? He is. Look at him.
Awesome. Yeah. So where your line is subjective, I think, is the answer to Kojal's question. And where my line is in relation to your line is also subjective. So if your line tells you that it's okay to associate with the government in a way that I don't like, then I won't associate with you. Like, that's how it works. But
it's the beautiful part of the system.
But and to reinforce what Christian's saying, disrespecting or ceasing reciprocating rights with somebody is a drastic measure. You should be careful with that. You shouldn't just willy-nilly walking around declaring everyone a state of nature being that you can aggress on whenever you want. That's a dangerous way to live. You got to be careful with that, you know, because the whole point of reciprocating rights with people is to improve your life and to hopefully live happier, safer, more productive, more successful. So be careful. It's a drastic step is what I'm saying.
I typically say, if you aren't absolutely sure, don't do it. Like, if you aren't, like, not copium convinced yourself, if you aren't absolutely sure that whatever you're about to do is the right thing and aggressing on someone who hasn't directly aggressed against you, just don't do it. Just walk away. That's my piece of advice, but that'll make sure you are never, I'll say almost never. You'll almost never aggress against someone who didn't deserve it. If you just walk away. Don't steal the garden gnome. Just don't do it. You know.
Trenton says, sent you something for Feed the Need. I hope, I don't know where you sent it, but you need to contact me and let me know, because we don't have a place for you to send it yet. So wherever you sent it, I'm worried that it's going to get misallocated. You know, let me know. When we take donations for Feed the Need, it will be on the voluntaryvirtue.org website, and we'll have a page for that with new donation links set up. Hopefully soon I'll do another quick announcement video when we have that up for you guys. And then that way we can guarantee that all the donations that go there go specifically to that purpose and don't go to, you know, pay my producer for work on Disenthrall or something like that. So I just want to make sure that your money goes where you want it to go, because I think it's a principled thing to do. I don't want to defraud you guys by taking your money that you donate for one purpose and using it for another. December 10th, guys, just come to Dallas, join us. It's going to be a great time, like it always is. All right. Well, I think that's it, man. This show ended up being a lot shorter than I thought it'd be.
Yeah, nice and succinct little conversation about property.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Well, thanks, Christian. Again, welcome to Disenthrall. I'm looking forward to seeing your content be published here. I think we have a couple videos coming up that you and I are going to collaborate on. We're going to go over the rules of reason, not the rules of reason. Excuse me, the types of inference, deductive, abductive, and inductive reasoning, and why it's important to know the difference and how to use them. And then we're also going to do, I think, a video on standards of evidence. So when we say you need reason and evidence to support a position, well, we're going to talk about what that means and what the standards should be. So
yes, a long overdue set of videos. Honestly, something I never really even thought to press record on, but I'm glad they're going to be getting made. So.
Casimir asks, did I get contacted by Scott from Fabian Liberty? I don't know who that is. Have not been contacted. My producer is on Twitter and Telegram. you can have whoever that is hit up Fallstar, the producer, and we can get something scheduled. All right. Awesome. Kick ass, guys. Well, we'll leave it there. Christian, thanks for hanging out. Guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys on Discord. I'm going to play some Overwatch 2 tonight. Have a good one.
Yeah. Take it easy.
Adios.